President Bola Tinubu has directed the Federal Ministry of Justice and the National Assembly to work on concerns raised over the tax bills. Criticisms have greeted President Tinubu's transmission of the tax reform bills, which is an executive bill to the National Assembly. The move has pitted the president against some governors and some leaders in the country, especially in the northern region of the country. And the most of the criticism that coming from some senators and, in fact, some governors. And the President has now mandated the Justice Ministry to look into the concerns raised and work with the leadership of the National Assembly to fine-tune the rough edges in the bill. So that matter also caused some kind of ruckus in the House of Reps today, and which threw the session into a rowdy mood after the spokesperson of the House, Honorable Akin Rotimi from Ekiti State, referenced the tax reform bills and says perhaps his own state and one of those states that are affirmed and support the bill on the floor. Rotimi had risen to move a motion for the consideration of two reports on behalf of Boma Goodhead, a lawmaker from Rivers State who was absent at plenary.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the leave of the House and Mr. Speaker to step down because the presentation of this report until the next legislative day, Mr. Speaker. Okay, thank you, sir.
If you choose to do so, the bill is stepped down by the leave of the House.
All right, then. A lot of eminent Nigerians have been speaking, those in the executive, those in the National Assembly, speaking for the interests of the Nigerian people. Tonight, I have a former governor, a sitting senator, represented by Yelsa State in the National Assembly, a member of the People's Democratic Party. Senator Seriake Dickson is live for us in our studio here. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, Shehu.
Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you for doing what you are doing.
Thank you so much indeed, sir.
Thank
It's indeed a very interesting period in our lives. I mean, you will remember, I guess, you left the House of Reps, but the conversation about the PID started when you were in the House of Reps.
Clearly.
So, and it's been a heated conversation. Yeah. And this also goes down even when Nigeria started discussing issues of derivation formula. You are one from the oil producing state, and you know how sensitive these issues are. Yeah. Nobody likes the face of a tax master. So when these issues are coming up, when we understand how touchy and edgy Nigerians could become about this matter. But as a former governor, you have a lot of insight. You know where the figures are. You and a sitting lawmaker, you also know the issue. So I'm speaking with a perfect, rounded personality in this, and also a lawyer. Indeed. So give us an understanding. What's your view on the matter of these tax reform bills?
Well, thank you very much. Look, first of all, any reform is not just legal or technical. A reform as massive as that conveyed in the 4 bills that the President and his team sent to the National Assembly requires a lot of political consensus building, consultation and consensus building. Every reform. I carried out a massive civil service reform while I was governor. And there's nothing bad about reforms. If you want to bring about lasting change, as governor or as a president, you must undertake fundamental reforms. The deeper the reforms are, the more fundamental they are, then the more likely that the result could last even beyond you. So I can understand the reason behind the president and the executive arm undertaking this reform. There's nothing wrong about that. And as you rightly said, any reform or even a minor amendment in a tax or revenue legislation will elicit a lot of interest and concern. And that is legitimate, not to talk of when you are proposing 4 bills at a time, repealing a lot of laws and so on. So the interest is understandable. That's what I'm making, the point I'm making. The interest is
whatever we are seeing, the debate now and the agitation.
It's perfectly normal, perfect to be expected. As you rightly said, when the PIB was introduced at that time, and the PIB took us almost 20 years to pass.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so back and forth, consultation, disagreements, even walkouts. In fact, when I left the House of Reps and went to be governor after 8 years and came back to the Senate, the PIB was still there. And you know what? At the final passage, I had to lead a walkout because I disagreed with the paltry 3% that the executive was now proposing, that my colleagues that we were interfacing, we couldn't move them to change their positions. And I let them. It's all legitimate and perfect. So the uproar, the concerns, the fears, and the different perspectives is legitimate. What is slightly missing, or I can't say even missing, even though I'm not part of the executive, because of the fundamental nature of the reforms at the far-reaching extent.
You've read them.
Effect. Of course, we have the 4 bills. I've read most of them. I've read all of them. I think that we could have had more robust and extensive consultation. I was a governor for 8 years, as you know, and therefore a member of the NEC, the National Economic Council, established by the Constitution anyway.
Chaired by the Vice President.
Yeah, chaired by the Vice President. A member of the Governors Forum also. You know? So these tax bills that affect, you know, the revenues of the entire federation, including subnationals, you know, I think we could have had more extensive and robust consultation before, while they were being crafted, you know, before they were sent. But since they were sent, and the president is well within his right to formulate bills and send to the National Assembly, doesn't need to read them through. It's just that because every reform entails political consensus building, you know, it's always better, even though there's no consultation you will embark on where everybody, every stakeholder will support.
So theoretically, in terms of the literature and the formulation of some of the policies in the proposition of the bills, everything looks intact. And the procedure up to the point where it was transmitted to the National Assembly, everything from your own point of view is in order, except the fact that the president and the executive are not playing the right politics.
No. Could have the consultation could have been broader.
That's part of politicking.
That's what I mean.
In terms of consensus building that you talked about, a lot of people will see it as either parliamentary politics or even national politics, just to bring people on board.
And even within the legislature, legislatures all over the world, there is the concept of lobbying. You must engage. Presidents or governors, presidents call parliamentarians. Presidents have dinners. Presidents have this. It's all part of the game. And our president is a field marshal in the game, in the political game. Yes. I think, and there's time for that. Okay, so let's not get it wrong. So when we had the bills, and I told my colleagues, both in the closed door session and in plenary, my views, you are aware of what I said. I said, look, we could have had better consultation, more extensive and robust consultation. But the bills are here, nevertheless. And we have a duty under the Constitution to process them. And I gave my views. I'm a federalist, okay? I've spent the better part of my adult life in politics working for a federal, united, peaceful and just Nigeria, an inclusive Nigeria, okay? And we've also been raising issues about the need to devolve power, the need to strengthen federating units, the need for people to see how we can generate revenues, develop at our own pace, different pace, while working for a united Nigeria. You know, that was the understanding we had when this country became independent. So when some of us talk about going back to the founding federal principles before 1966, that's exactly what we mean. So I'm a committed federalist. And I can't spend all my years talking about restructuring and devolution. And here comes a president who introducing bills that are clearly an effort at fiscal federalism, entrenching fiscal federalism. Oh boy, I don't need any consultation to be able to support. So in general principles, yes, I'm in support. And we took our arguments on general principles. And by our rules, when bills come up at that level, we discuss the general principles, not section by section at that stage. That is left for the committee. The work of every legislation, the extensive work is done at the committee level. Plenary doesn't have the time for that. Okay? Plenary is a sacred meeting place.
So the hue and cry about passage of the second reading was not founded because it's a surface, it's a summary, it's an executive summary passage.
Yeah. What the question we were asking ourselves, and I addressed my colleagues on it. Look, at this level, we are not doing a section by section analysis. We're asking ourselves the general question: these bills, do they make sense? That's all. Is a tax reform imperative for Nigeria? And the answer was yes. I don't think anybody was prepared to say no. Okay? And so we now said, the Senate presiding officer now, in accordance with our rules, directed it to be referred to the committee chaired by distinguished Senator Sani Musa, Niger East. And I'm a member of the Finance Committee also, as I am.
You have been given 6 weeks.
Yes, so for us to process the bill in accordance with our rules, meaning therefore that there will be extensive and robust public hearings, okay, at which every stakeholder, every group, every individual who has anything to say, any concerns to express, any fears to be allayed, will appear before the committee and then raise these issues so that the committee, at that level of a committee, with the benefit of technical consultants and so on, will now look at all those issues. If, for example, in the course of the public hearing, we come to the conclusion, as some of my colleagues have been telling me, close friends and allies across the country, even in the north, more in the north, and they have come to tell me, look, that we have concerns that this may be unconstitutional. This may be a repeal of social law. And I say, okay, no problem. When we meet at the public hearing, we'll refer the Attorney General, we'll invite the Attorney General of the Federation to give an opinion. We will call for other legal practitioners to give an opinion. And some of us are also very senior lawyers. And the Senate has a lot of experienced people from all parts of the country, you know, and we're very experienced. Let me
we will
do justice to it at that level.
Let me take you on a quick ride.
Yes.
Nigeria is very complex and interestingly very dynamic.
Yes.
And you are also from that dynamic part of the country. 8 local government, that's what Bayelsa has. And I'm not sure that there is any state in Nigeria that has more water bodies than your state. In terms of resources, in terms of revenue allocation, in terms of derivation, in terms of allocation, all of these issues are issues that you perhaps have faced as a governor, as a lawmaker. And so when we're talking about the diversity of this country, there are some states that if you mention, it will give you an understanding of how interesting this country is.
Interesting.
That's one of the interesting countries in the world. Give us an understanding of the fairness that you think is there in these bills. Do you see any kind of fairness? Because there are those who agitate that things may not be looking fair, but there are scenarios. There are estimations that are being made according to the proposition compared to what exists right now.
Look, let me tell you, before I get there, let me educate you, as I always educate Nigerians, about the state of Bayelsa, the great state of Bayelsa.
Absolutely.
First of all, local governments are not created by civilian administrations. Local governments were created by fiat. Even states were created by fiat. And the fact that General Sani Abacha, whom we are very fond of in Bayelsa, anyway, we don't care what the rest of you say about him, but he gave us a state, which others did not. Okay? When he did that, we were very happy, but people didn't quite follow up on the issue of local governments. So there is this wrong notion over the years. As Bayelsa is only 8 states. Let me educate you. Bayelsa, the size of Bayelsa, is almost that of River State, landmass. It will shock you, but you can Google it.
I'm aware.
Oh, yes. Bayelsa is about 10,700 and something square kilometers. You understand? River State is about 11,000 something. Very small difference. So what they did was to split the state, the old River State, our old River State, into almost 2 equal parts. Now, what is Bayelsa is 8 local governments. Bayelsa is like 4 times Lagos State, the landmass.
Landmass, yeah.
4 times.
Bigger.
People don't know. Bayelsa is like, there are some states in the southeast that Bayelsa is like 3 times the landmass and the water bodies. But yet, 8 local governments. So I just wanted that clarification. Now, if you are talking of benefits and fairness, as I told my colleagues in both the closed session and the plenary, look, we go by what is fair and what is right. And they all know that about me. What is right, we will support it. What has to be opposed in the national interest. And I always advise that we do so not from a narrow ethnic or religious perspective. But let us disagree as national leaders, as national players. Because in the national assembly, we are national leaders, okay? Now, look at this. The scenario now is that if you look at the sharing formula, the old formula, there are 2 ways to look at it. The first is the one from up to down. The state, local governments take 35%. States are taking, local governments are taking 35%. States, with your existing formula, the states will now take the rest, and then the federal government takes 15. You understand? Now, the new proposal is that states, when it will change a little, states will now take 50%. And then the states, the LGs, will now retain their 35%. The federal own has been reduced from 15 to 10. So between you and I disagree with that. And those are issues when we come, we will sort out. Okay? I think that the federation has a lot of challenges, and this is not the time to reduce.
There are 2 things.
Okay? Now, when you come to the other one that is shared across the states, which is where I think some concerns are being raised, I think the existing formula is that what is going to the states, they share it 50% on the basis of equality of states. Okay? All states equally. Then they now take 30% on the basis of population. Okay? And then the remaining 20%, they do it on derivation. That's the existing formula. What is being proposed, the section on this, what is being proposed, and I think that's where some concerns are being raised, where states say it could affect their revenue. And that concern is not a wrong concern. It's a legitimate conversation.
So the governors they're legitimately...
This is a democracy. I believe in consensus building, networking, consultation, agreement and disagreement in the national interest. Okay? Now, in that new formula that is proposed, remember 50% was for equality of states. Now, what is being proposed is that 60% will go to derivation. That is, states producing, they get 60% of what you produce. Okay? 20% on equality and 20% on population. That is what is contained. Now, I don't see anything unfair in this. Remember, I'm a federalist. And if you follow the doctrines of federalism, what it means is that states that produce, we're talking of tax revenue, for God's sake. And VAT, that everybody is talking about, VAT, as I told my colleagues, is not a production tax, it's a consumption tax. In other words, if I'm in Bayelsa and I buy card, I buy cement, Dangote cement or Bua cement, and somebody buys Kai, what it means is that the VAT attendant to it should accrue to the state. Because VAT essentially is a state tax. Because it is a consumption tax. It's not a production tax. What we have done is, because of our peculiar reasons, we have now decided to centralize the collection. And over the years, to enable everyone have some sense of belonging, enable everyone get on foot and manage, over the years, they formulated that system by which everybody has a share. But they are not jettisoning it. And the danger is that, there's a challenge. I also raised a lot of those issues as governor. Against FIRS, at the neck, and so on. There is a challenge by some governors at the Supreme Court saying that VAT being a state consumption tax, the states where things are produced and consumed
should be collecting it.
Should collect it and have it all at the Supreme Court. What I think that these legislations are trying to do, if we can build consensus fast enough, okay, and get them passed and signed into law, then it will now have a situation where states can still have the advantage of having 20% on the basis of equality, have another 20% on the basis of population, while the remaining 60% goes to states that have that enjoy it. Now, there's no state that does not generate VAT. Because consumption takes place everywhere.
Let me quickly take you on this one. I mean, by the way, thank you so much for the clarification that you made on Bayelsa.
Can I just make another point before we move on?
Okay.
In Bayelsa, part of what I have been fighting over the years is that most of our tax is paid to Lagos State. Most of our payee, most of our VAT is paid to Lagos State. Why? Because the existing tax regime requires that it be attributed to the state where the headquarters
of the company is.
Yes.
But in
Most
the proposition now,
yes,
that will be upturned.
That will be upturned.
So what is consumed in Bayelsa will come to Bayelsa.
That's what I want. So I'm supporting it.
So there's a correction of the old order.
Oh, yes.
And
so introducing fairness that I've been fighting for over the years. Wait a minute. Now, NAPIMS is in Lagos State. All the oil service contracts that are for jobs executed in Akwa Ibom, in the River State, in Delta, in Bayelsa, in parts of Edo, in Ondo, they are attributed to Lagos State. And I've been fighting. Even we have some cases that are instituted as governor, still ongoing. And these bills will correct that.
All right. Yeah, so as a matter of us, I mean, my final question would have been the solution, and you've given the solution in your submission of what needs to be done. That consensus had to be given. And I must thank you for the clarification on Bayelsa State. Yeah. Anybody who has not been to Bayelsa State may not understand or know.
They don't know.
And for someone who almost lost his life covering election on the boat to Brass, will understand.
You know the nature of
and that's why I was asking the question of fairness. Because you don't think that eight local government is befitting for a state as large as Bayelsa State. And that's why I was asking about the issue of fairness.
Yes.
But Your Excellency, on a final note, how do we resolve this ethnic division that these bills have generated?
Well, I mean, that's part of what people have to step up and play roles as leaders. Someone asked me about yesterday. I know some sensational headline was generated, which is not. And I told them, look, I don't comment on regional politics, on regional. I'm not an ethnic and regional politician. At our level, we have to be, or at least aspire to be, national politicians. So and that's what I've been discussing with my colleagues, from all parts of the country, that we can have a healthy conversation, even a debate, even a disagreement, and an argument. After all, what are parliaments for? We're not there to always agree. Mm-hmm. This is a vast and diverse country. There are states you go to that you will have almost 50, 100 different languages and cultures. Mm-hmm. This is a very interesting, beautiful, diverse nation. So no one should expect any unanimity of views or perspectives. No, disagreements are normal. And as my good friend Dogara said in your program, because I watched a little bit of it, okay? The more the arguments and the discussions and even the disagreements, it shows the virility of our democracy. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong about that. The only thing is, while doing so, we shouldn't ethnicize. We shouldn't bring in sectional sentiments, and we should address the issues. I'm supporting it because, as I said, every week they fly in workers, oil company workers from Lagos State to work in Bayelsa, in Brass, in Kulama. Okay? They do so. Fly workers from Lagos to Ibono, to Eket,
to Kolokuma,
to everywhere. And in Delta, they fly them to Focados, to Ogola. Okay? In Rivers, they fly them to Bonny every day. Now, as they go back, do you know where the pay of those workers are paid to?
Lagos.
We have to correct that. And this president and his team, I'm not in the president's party. I've not even seen the presidency. He knows me, I know him in our AD days. But he and I are in different parties. But here am I. I can see when something is being done to address a problem. I don't need anybody to come and tell me no. So if we have valid issues, and this is it, we have avenues for correcting it. At the public hearing, our expectation is, I can see that the president has directed the Attorney General to, even if the president did not direct, we have the powers, and some of us in that finance committee would have invited him and the Solicitor General to give informed opinions on those sections. Because if a section, I'm not convinced that a section can pass the test of constitutionality, we will strike that section out.
All right.
Simple. So we have an opportunity to fine-tune the bill. And I don't think anybody is adverse to it. There's no legislation, and I've been a parliamentarian for some time, there's no legislation that somebody submits, the executive will submit to a parliament, and it comes out the same way. Then there's something wrong with that parliament. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
And you have people like us there.
Yeah.
So once there's any concern about any section, and we look at it, we tweak it. That's our duty under the Constitution.
All right.
And we have the powers to do that. We don't need any permission from anybody to do that.
Your Excellency.
Yes.
Former governor of Bayelsa State, sitting senator representing Bayelsa, the good people of Bayelsa State, that's what
very
they
wonderful
say.
people.
But very good job people. One thing I love to do, which I don't know how to do very well, is to drink kai-kai and also to swim. I don't know how to swim very well. No, I don't know how to swim very well. But I know you job people know how to do both very well.
Yes.
Thank you so much
for coming. There's something else I know you can do very well.
Fish.
We won't say it here.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Seriake Dickson, for your intervention tonight. I appreciate it.